The evening air was calm, carrying the faint scent of blooming flowers and freshly cut grass. Maya adjusted the strap of her handbag as she walked beside her daughter, Leela. Her small hand fit perfectly in Maya's, their fingers intertwined like puzzle pieces. The setting sun painted the sky with streaks of orange and pink, casting a warm glow over the quiet suburban streets. "Mommy, look!" Leela exclaimed, pointing at a butterfly fluttering near a cluster of daisies by the sidewalk. She let go of Maya's hand and skipped toward it, her laughter echoing through the empty street. Maya watched her with a soft smile, feeling grateful for these simple moments. Life hadn't been easy since she became a single mother, but every time she saw Leela's bright eyes and carefree spirit, all her worries seemed to fade away. They had spent the afternoon at the local park, where Leela played on the swings while Maya sat on a bench reading a book. It was one of those rare days when everything felt perfect, no bills piling up, no arguments with landlords, just peace. As they strolled back home now, Leela entertained Maya with an animated retelling of how she convinced another child at the park to share his cookies with her, and then he said, "Okay, but only if you promise not to eat them all." Leela giggled, mimicking the boy's voice. "So I promised, Mommy, but guess what? He didn't even take half." Maya chuckled, brushing a strand of hair out of her face. "That's my clever girl," she said, squeezing Leela's hand affectionately. But as they turned onto Maple Street, the tranquility of the evening began to shift. In the distance, the faint wail of sirens grew louder, accompanied by the flashing red and blue lights of police cars speeding past intersections. Maya furrowed her brow, wondering what could be happening so close to their neighborhood. She glanced down at Leela, who was too busy skipping ahead to notice anything unusual. Suddenly, a black and white patrol car screeched to a halt right in front of them. Two officers stepped out, their expressions stern and unyielding. One of them held up a hand, signaling for Maya to stop. Startled, she froze in place, clutching Leela's hand tightly. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us," one of the officers barked, his tone sharp and authoritative. Maya blinked, confusion washing over her. What's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Is there some kind of problem?" The officer ignored her question and instead gestured toward the squad car. "Please cooperate, ma'am. This will go much smoother if you don't resist." Leela tugged at Maya's sleeve, her wide eyes filled with fear. "Mommy, why are they talking to us? What did we do?" Maya knelt down to face her daughter, forcing herself to stay calm despite the knot forming in her stomach. "It's okay, sweetheart. We haven't done anything wrong. Just stay close to me, all right?" As Maya tried to reason with the officers, explaining that they were simply heading home after a day at the park, the tension escalated. More patrol cars arrived, surrounding them. Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains, curious about the commotion but hesitant to intervene. Maya's heart raced as she realized this wasn't just a routine check, it felt personal, targeted. Then, without warning, things took a turn for the worse. One of the officers grabbed Maya's arm roughly, pulling her away from Leela. Panic surged through her as she struggled against his grip. "Let me go," she cried. "I have my daughter with me," Leela screamed, reaching out for her mother. "Mommy, don't leave me." The chaos unfolded rapidly, a blur of shouts, tears, and desperation. And in that moment, nothing seemed certain, except the unbearable thought that something terrible was about to happen. The peaceful evening had shattered into fragments, leaving behind only fear and uncertainty. The night air grew colder as the tension between Maya and the officers escalated. Leela's screams pierced through the silence of the neighborhood, her tiny voice trembling with fear. "Mommy, please, don't leave me," she cried, her small hands reaching out desperately toward Maya. But Maya was already being pulled away, her protests drowned out by the authoritative commands of the officers. "Ma'am, stop resisting." One of the officers barked, tightening his grip on her arm. His tone left no room for negotiation, but Maya couldn't comprehend why this was happening. Her mind raced with questions. What had she done wrong? Why were they treating her like a criminal? "I haven't done anything," Maya shouted, tears streaming down her face. "Please, let me explain. My daughter is here. She doesn't understand what's going on." But her pleas fell on deaf ears. Another officer stepped forward, blocking Leela from approaching her mother. "Stay back, kid," he said firmly, though not unkindly. Still, his presence only added to the chaos. Leela froze in place, her wide eyes filled with confusion and terror. Maya's heart shattered as she saw the fear etched across her daughter's face. She tried to break free again, her maternal instincts overpowering any sense of self-preservation. "Leela, it's okay. I'm right here," she called out, hoping to reassure her little girl even as panic consumed her own thoughts. Then everything changed in an instant. As Maya continued to struggle, one of the officers lost patience. In a moment that would haunt the neighborhood and Maya for years to come, he pushed her forcefully to the ground. The impact knocked the wind out of her, leaving her gasping for breath. For a split second, time seemed to stand still. The world around them faded into a blur of flashing lights and distant murmurs, and then came the sound that no parent should ever have to hear: a blood-curdling scream. Leela, seeing her mother fall, ran toward her without hesitation. Her small body moved faster than anyone expected, slipping past the officer who had been trying to restrain her. But before she could reach Maya, tragedy struck. A second officer, startled by Leela's sudden movement, reacted impulsively. In his haste to control the situation, he reached out to grab her, but his actions were too forceful. Leela stumbled backward, losing her footing on the uneven pavement. Her head hit the curb with a sickening thud. For a moment, there was silence. Complete and utter silence. Then, the wail of agony erupted from Maya's throat. "Leela!" she screamed, scrambling to her feet despite the pain shooting through her body. She rushed to her daughter's side, cradling her limp form in her arms. Blood trickled from a gash on Leela's forehead, staining Maya's shirt as she held her close. "No, no, no," Maya whispered, her voice breaking. "Baby, wake up. Please, wake up." The officers stood frozen, their earlier aggression replaced by shock and disbelief. None of them had anticipated this outcome. One of them fumbled for his radio, calling for medical assistance, while another knelt beside Maya, offering hesitant words of reassurance. "It's going to be okay, ma'am," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Help is coming." But Maya barely heard him. Her entire world had collapsed in an instant. All she could focus on was the fragile life in her arms, the life that was slowly slipping away. Leela's breathing grew shallow, her eyelids fluttering weakly as if she were fighting to stay awake. "Stay with me, sweetheart," Maya begged, pressing her trembling hands against the wound on Leela's head in a futile attempt to stop the bleeding. "You're going to be fine. Just hold on, baby. Hold on." Neighbors began to gather, drawn by the commotion. Some watched in stunned silence, while others whispered among themselves, unable to process what they were witnessing. A few brave souls stepped forward, offering blankets or water, but nothing could undo the horror of what had just transpired. When the ambulance finally arrived, its siren cutting through the night, Maya refused to let go of Leela. Paramedics worked quickly, gently prying the child from her mother's arms. As they loaded Leela onto a stretcher, Maya followed closely behind, clutching her daughter's tiny hand as if holding on for dear life. "Don't leave me," she whispered over and over again, her voice raw with emotion. "Please, don't leave me." The ride to the hospital passed in a haze of fear and despair. Maya sat in the ambulance, gripping Leela's hand tightly, praying for a miracle. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something irreversible had happened, that her precious little girl might never wake up. And as the ambulance sped through the darkened streets, the weight of the evening's events settled heavily on Maya's shoulders. What had started as a peaceful walk home had turned into a nightmare, one that would change her life forever. The sterile white walls of the hospital corridor seemed to close in around Maya as she sat hunched on a cold plastic chair, her hands trembling uncontrollably. Her clothes were still stained with Leela's blood, a grim reminder of the chaos that had unfolded just hours earlier. Nurses and doctors bustled past her, their faces masks of professionalism, but none stopped to offer comfort or answers. To them, she was just another anxious parent waiting for news, another nameless face in a sea of emergencies. But Maya wasn't just another parent. She was a mother clinging to the fragile thread of hope that her daughter would pull through. Every second felt like an eternity, each tick of the clock amplifying her fear. Her mind replayed the events over and over again, the sound of Leela's scream, the sight of her tiny body crumpling to the ground, the lifeless way she lay in Maya's arms. Each memory pierced her heart like shards of glass, leaving her breathless and broken. A doctor finally emerged from the emergency room, his expression unreadable. Maya shot up from her seat, nearly stumbling in her haste to reach him. "How is she?" she asked, her voice hoarse from crying. "Is my baby okay?" The doctor hesitated, his eyes softening slightly as he took in Maya's disheveled appearance. Ms. Carter, he began, gently glancing at her chart. Your daughter sustained a significant head injury. We've stabilized her for now, but he paused, choosing his words carefully. She's in critical condition. There's swelling in her brain, and we won't know the full extent of the damage until she wakes up. If she wakes up, Maya staggered backward as if struck by an invisible force. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed back into the chair, tears streaming down her face once more. No, she whispered, shaking her head violently. No, 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 you have to save her. Please, do something. I promise you, we're doing everything we can, the doctor assured her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. But right now, it's up to her. All we can do is wait. Wait. That word echoed in Maya's mind like a cruel taunt. How could she simply sit there and wait while her daughter fought for her life? It felt unbearable, impossible. Yet, there was nothing else she could do. For the first time in her life, Maya felt utterly powerless. As the night dragged on, snippets of the evening replayed in her mind. She thought about the officers, their harsh voices, their aggressive actions, and anger began to simmer beneath her grief. Why had they treated her like a criminal? What gave them the right to turn a peaceful evening into a nightmare? And most importantly, why hadn't anyone intervened to protect Leela? Her thoughts were interrupted when a police officer appeared at the end of the hallway. He approached cautiously, his uniform crisp and his cap held tightly in his hands. Miss Carter? He asked tentatively, stopping a few feet away. I'm Officer Ramirez. I wanted to check on your daughter and see how you're holding up. Maya stared at him, her eyes blazing with fury. How I'm holding up? She repeated, her voice low and trembling with rage. My daughter is fighting for her life because of what happened tonight. Because of you. How do you think I'm holding up? Officer Ramirez flinched, clearly unprepared for her outburst. Ma'am, I understand this is difficult. Maya cut him off, rising to her feet. You don't get to tell me it's difficult. You weren't the one watching your child bleed out on the pavement. You weren't the one begging her to stay alive. So don't you dare try to explain this to me. Her voice rose with every word, drawing the attention of nearby staff and visitors. A nurse hurried over, attempting to calm her down. Miss, please try to keep your voice down. This is a hospital. Maya clenched her fists, fighting to regain control of herself. She knew yelling wouldn't bring Leela back, it wouldn't undo any of the pain, but the injustice of it all burned inside her like wildfire. Taking a deep breath, she turned back to Officer Ramirez. Just tell me one thing, she said, her tone icy. Why did you attack us? What did we do to deserve that? Officer Ramirez shifted uncomfortably, avoiding her gaze. There was a misunderstanding, he admitted reluctantly. We received a report of suspicious activity in the area. When we approached you, things escalated quickly. But trust me, no one intended for this to happen. A misunderstanding? Maya echoed, her voice breaking. Your misunderstanding almost killed my daughter. Do you even realize what you've done? Before he could respond, a commotion erupted near the entrance of the hospital. Reporters had arrived, cameras flashing and microphones thrust forward as they tried to capture footage of the unfolding drama. Word of the incident had spread quickly, igniting outrage across the community. Social media posts condemning the police department flooded timelines, accompanied by hashtags like #JusticeForLeela and #AccountabilityNow. Maya felt overwhelmed by the sudden attention. She didn't want to be the face of a movement. She just wanted her daughter back. But as she watched the reporters clamoring for information, she realized that people cared, people were angry on her behalf. Maybe, just maybe, this tragedy could spark change. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her away from her thoughts. It was a text from her sister Sarah. I'm coming to the hospital. Stay strong, Maya. We'll get through this together. For the first time since the nightmare began, Maya allowed herself to cry, not just for Leela, but for the shattered pieces of her own life. She didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain, she wouldn't let this go unanswered. Justice had to be served for Leela, for herself, and for every family who had ever been failed by those sworn to protect them. And so, as dawn broke outside the hospital windows, Maya resolved to fight not just for survival, but for truth. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the hospital windows, casting long shadows across the waiting room where Maya sat. Exhaustion weighed heavily on her shoulders, but sleep was a distant thought. Her mind raced with questions, anger, and grief, each emotion colliding like waves in a stormy sea. She clutched her phone tightly in her hands, scrolling through messages. of support from friends, family, and even strangers who had heard about Leela's plight online. One message stood out, a voice note from Sarah, her older sister. "Maya, I'm almost there," Sarah's voice said, calm yet firm. "You're stronger than you think. We'll get through this together, okay? Just hold on." Hearing her sister's voice brought a flicker of comfort to Maya's heart. Sarah had always been her rock, the person she turned to when life became too heavy to bear alone. But even with Sarah on her way, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing at the edge of an abyss. The road ahead seemed impossibly dark, but something inside her stirred a quiet determination to fight for justice, no matter how daunting the battle might be. As if summoned by her thoughts, Sarah arrived moments later, her presence commanding yet soothing. She embraced Maya tightly, holding her as if to shield her from the world's cruelty. "I'm here now," Sarah whispered, stroking Maya's hair. "Let it all out." Maya broke down, tears streaming freely as she leaned into her sister's arms. For the first time since the incident, she allowed herself to release some of the pain she'd been carrying. When the tears subsided, Sarah handed her a tissue and sat beside her, their knees touching. "Tell me everything," she said gently. "From the beginning." Maya recounted the events of the previous night, the peaceful walk home, the sudden appearance of the officers, the chaos that ensued, and the horrifying moment when Leela fell. As she spoke, Sarah listened intently, her expression growing darker with each word. By the time Maya finished, Sarah's jaw was clenched, her eyes blazing with fury. "This isn't right," Sarah said firmly. "They can't treat people like this. Not you, not Leela, not anyone. Something has to be done." "I know," Maya replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But what can I do? They're the police, they have power, influence. Who will believe me?" Sarah placed a reassuring hand on Maya's shoulder. "We start by telling your story. People are already talking about this. Social media is blowing up. If we push hard enough, they won't be able to ignore us. And if necessary, we take legal action. You're not alone in this, Maya. We'll find someone who can help." Her words ignited a spark within Maya, a newfound resolve to seek accountability. She nodded slowly, feeling a small sense of purpose begin to take root amidst the despair. "Okay," she said, her voice steadier now. "What do we do first?" Sarah pulled out her phone and began making calls. Within hours, a team of allies started to form. A local attorney named Mr. Daniels agreed to meet them at the hospital, offering his services pro bono after hearing about the case. He was known for taking on controversial cases involving police misconduct, and his reputation gave Maya a glimmer of hope. When Mr. Daniels arrived, he introduced himself with a warm but professional demeanor. "Ms. Carter," he said, shaking her hand, "I want to assure you that I'll do everything in my power to help you navigate this situation. Justice may not come easily, but it is possible." Over the next hour, Maya recounted the details of the incident once more, this time for legal purposes. Mr. Daniels listened attentively, jotting down notes and asking clarifying questions. By the end of their conversation, he had outlined a plan: gather evidence, file a formal complaint against the officers involved, and prepare for potential legal proceedings. Meanwhile, outside the hospital, public outrage continued to grow. Protesters gathered in front of the precinct, holding signs that read "Protect our children" and "No more police brutality." News outlets covered the story extensively, amplifying Maya's voice and bringing national attention to the case. Strangers shared videos and posts, urging others to demand accountability. Back in the hospital, Maya watched footage of the protests on TV, her heart swelling with gratitude. For so long, she had felt powerless, but seeing people rally around her cause reminded her that she wasn't fighting alone. Still, guilt lingered in the corners of her mind. Was it selfish to focus on seeking justice while Leela lay unconscious in a hospital bed? As if sensing her turmoil, Sarah squeezed her hand. "You're doing the right thing," she said softly. "Leela deserves this. She deserves a world where she doesn't have to fear those meant to protect her." Maya nodded, drawing strength from her sister's words. Though the journey ahead would be difficult, she knew one thing for certain: she wouldn't stop until the truth came to light. This wasn't just about vengeance, it was about ensuring that no other child would suffer the same fate as Leela. And with that thought, Maya made a silent promise to her daughter. No matter what happened next, she would fight for Leela, for justice, and for a future free from fear. The days that followed were a blur of emotions, decisions, and relentless activity. Maya found herself caught between two worlds: the sterile, quiet confines of the hospital where Leela lay unconscious, and the chaotic whirlwind of public outcry and legal proceedings outside its walls. Each morning, she woke with a heavy heart, her first thought always for her daughter. But as the hours passed, her focus shifted to the growing movement demanding accountability. Mr. Daniels became a constant presence in Maya's life, guiding her through the complex maze of filing complaints and preparing evidence. He introduced her to a private investigator named Clara, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who specialized in cases involving police misconduct. Together, they combed through every detail of the incident, piecing together what had happened that fateful night. Clara brought with her surveillance footage from nearby homes and businesses, grainy but damning clips that showed the officers' aggressive behavior toward Maya and Leela. One video, captured by a neighbor's security camera, clearly depicted the moment when Leela fell, her small body crumpling to the ground. Watching it broke Maya's heart all over again, but she forced herself to stay strong. "This is proof," Mr. Daniels said firmly. "We'll use it to build our case." Meanwhile, the protests outside the precinct grew larger and louder. Community leaders, activists, and even celebrities joined the cause, amplifying Maya's story on social media platforms. Hashtags like #JusticeForLeela trended nationwide, drawing attention not only to this specific tragedy but also to broader issues of systemic injustice. People shared stories of their own encounters with law enforcement, creating a tapestry of voices united in their demand for change. Maya attended one of the rallies reluctantly, unsure if she was ready to face such a large crowd. Sarah insisted, saying, "Your voice matters, Maya. You need to show people that you're standing up not just for Leela, but for everyone." Standing behind a podium, Maya felt exposed and vulnerable. Thousands of eyes were on her, yet she couldn't ignore the sea of supportive faces holding candles and signs bearing her daughter's name. Taking a deep breath, she began to speak. "My daughter deserves to wake up in a world where she feels safe," Maya said, her voice trembling, but resolute. "No child should live in fear of those meant to protect them. Please, help me make sure this never happens again." The crowd erupted into applause, chanting her name and promising solidarity. For the first time since the incident, Maya felt a glimmer of hope, not just for justice, but for healing. However, not everyone supported the movement. Critics emerged, accusing Maya of exaggerating the situation or using her daughter's condition for personal gain. Some defended the officers, claiming they were simply doing their job under difficult circumstances. These accusations stung deeply, but Maya refused to let them derail her mission. "They can say whatever they want," she told Sarah one evening. "After reading hateful comments online, I know the truth, and so does Leela." Back at the hospital, progress remained painfully slow. Doctors updated Maya daily, explaining that while Leela's condition was stable, there were still concerns about potential brain damage due to the swelling. Physical therapy would likely be necessary once she regained consciousness, if she ever did. The uncertainty gnawed at Maya, leaving her restless and anxious. One afternoon, as Maya sat beside Leela's bed, stroking her hand gently, a nurse entered the room carrying a bouquet of flowers. "These arrived for you," she said kindly, placing them on the bedside table. Attached was a card signed by dozens of supporters. "Stay strong, Maya. We're with you every step of the way." Tears welled up in Maya's eyes as she read the message. It wasn't just flowers, it was a reminder that she wasn't alone. That despite the pain, the anger, and the overwhelming odds, there were people who believed in her fight. As the sun set outside the window, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Maya leaned down and kissed Leela's forehead. "You're my reason for everything, baby," she whispered. "I promise I won't stop until we have justice for you, for us, for everyone." In that moment, Maya realized something profound. This battle wasn't just about winning or losing. It was about standing up, speaking out, and refusing to let fear silence her. Whatever the outcome, she would continue to fight, not because she wanted revenge, but because she owed it to her daughter to create a better future. And with each passing day, Maya grew stronger, more determined, and more hopeful. The road ahead was long and uncertain, but she knew one thing for sure: she wouldn't walk it alone. Weeks turned into months, and the fight for justice became a daily reality. For Maya, each day brought new challenges, but also small victories that kept her spirits alive. The legal process moved slowly, bogged down by paperwork, hearings, and bureaucratic delays. Yet, with Mr. Daniels and Clara by her side, Maya began to feel like they were making progress. Evidence was piling up: surveillance footage, witness testimonies, expert analyses, and public pressure showed no signs of waning. One morning, as Maya arrived at the hospital to visit Leela, she noticed a subtle change in the air. Nurses greeted her with unusually warm smiles, and one even whispered, "Good news today, Miss Carter." Confused but hopeful, Maya hurried to Leela's room, her heart pounding in anticipation. Inside, a doctor stood beside Leela's bed, adjusting machines and checking monitors. When he saw Maya, his face broke into a cautious smile. "Miss Carter," he said, gesturing for her to come closer. "I have something to share." Maya froze, gripping the edge of the bed tightly. Is she okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. The doctor nodded slowly. "Leela has shown significant improvement over the past few days. Her brain activity is increasing, and earlier this morning, she opened her eyes briefly." Maya gasped, tears welling up instantly. "She woke up. For how long?" "Just for a moment," the doctor clarified, "but it's a promising sign. It means her body is responding to treatment. We'll continue monitoring her closely, but this could be the start of her recovery." Relief washed over Maya like a tidal wave. She collapsed into the chair beside Leela's bed, clutching her daughter's hand as if afraid she might disappear. "You hear that, baby?" she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "You're getting better. Mommy's here, and we're going to get through this together." For the first time in months, Maya allowed herself to truly believe that things might turn around. Leela's progress was slow. She didn't regain full consciousness immediately, but the flicker of hope burned brighter than ever. Physical therapists began working with her, gently encouraging movement and response. Though Leela couldn't speak yet, her occasional squeezes of Maya's hand spoke volumes. Outside the hospital, the momentum of the movement continued to grow. The case had become a national conversation, sparking debates about police reform and accountability. Lawmakers started discussing policy changes, while advocacy groups organized workshops and campaigns to educate communities about their rights. Maya's courage inspired countless others to share their own stories, creating a ripple effect of empowerment. Despite these positive developments, not everything was smooth sailing. The officers involved in the incident issued statements through their lawyers, denying any wrongdoing and claiming they acted within protocol. Their defense painted the situation as a tragic accident rather than an act of negligence. This infuriated Maya, but instead of letting anger consume her, she channeled it into action. At a press conference organized by Mr. Daniels, Maya addressed the media once again. Standing tall despite the weight on her shoulders, she held up a photo of Leela before the incident, a smiling little girl with bright eyes and untamed curls. "This is my daughter," Maya said, her voice steady and clear. "She deserves to live without fear. What happened to us wasn't an accident, it was a failure of the system. And until that system changes, no family is safe." Her words resonated deeply, earning widespread support. Even critics who had initially questioned her motives began to soften their stance, acknowledging the validity of her cause. The officers' attempts to deflect responsibility only fueled public outrage further, strengthening Maya's position. Back at home, Sarah helped Maya prepare for the upcoming court hearings. They spent hours reviewing documents, practicing testimony, and strategizing with Mr. Daniels. Despite the stress, Maya found solace in knowing she had a team fighting alongside her. Every late-night discussion ended with Sarah reminding her, "We're doing this for Leela. Keep your eyes on the prize." As the trial date approached, Maya visited Leela every day, updating her on the progress. "You're going to be proud of us, sweetheart," she murmured during one such visit. "We're standing up for what's right for you, for me, for everyone who deserves justice." Though the road ahead remained uncertain, Maya felt stronger than ever. She knew the battle wouldn't end overnight, but she also knew she wasn't alone. With Leela showing signs of recovery, a supportive community rallying behind her, and a growing movement demanding change, Maya dared to dream of a brighter future. And as she sat beside her daughter, watching her chest rise and fall with each breath, Maya made another silent vow. No matter how long it took, she would see this fight through to honor Leela, to protect others, and to ensure that love and truth triumphed over fear and injustice. The day of the trial arrived, heavy with anticipation. The courtroom buzzed with tension as reporters, activists, and community members packed the benches, eager to witness what many hoped would be a turning point in the fight for justice. Maya sat at the plaintiff's table, flanked by Mr. Daniels and Clara. Her hands trembled slightly, but her gaze was steady, fixed ahead as if envisioning a future where this moment would mark the beginning of real change. Leela, though still recovering, had been deemed well enough to attend via video call. Her small face appeared on a screen near the judge's bench, pale but alert. When Maya glanced at her daughter, Leela offered a faint smile, her way of saying, "You've got this, Mommy." That tiny gesture filled Maya with strength, anchoring her to the purpose of it all. The prosecution presented its case first, laying out the timeline of events with meticulous detail. Surveillance footage played on a large screen, showing the officer's aggressive actions and the tragic fall that changed everything. Witness testimonies followed, neighbors who had watched in horror, medical experts who explained the severity of Leela's injuries, and even bystanders who recounted how the situation spiraled out of control. Each piece of evidence painted a damning picture of negligence and misconduct. When it was Maya's turn to testify, the room fell silent. She took a deep breath, steadying herself before speaking. That night wasn't just an accident, she began, her voice firm despite the lump in her throat. It was a failure of those tasked with protecting us to act with care and compassion. My daughter almost lost her life because of their recklessness. No family should have to endure what we've been through. Her words resonated deeply, drawing nods of agreement from the gallery. Even the judge seemed moved, jotting down notes with a furrowed brow. When cross-examination came, the defense tried to poke holes in Maya's account, questioning her perspective and motives. But Maya remained composed, answering each question with clarity and conviction. By the time she stepped down from the stand, there was no doubt in anyone's mind. She was fighting not just for herself, but for something much bigger. The verdict came days later, after hours of deliberation. When the jury foreperson stood to deliver the decision, the courtroom held its collective breath. On the charges of excessive force and negligence, we find the defendants guilty, they announced. A wave of relief swept over Maya, tears streaming down her face as Sarah hugged her tightly. Cheers erupted from the crowd, accompanied by applause that echoed through the halls of the courthouse. It was a victory not just for Maya and Leela, but for every person who had ever felt powerless against injustice. In the weeks that followed, the fallout from the trial sparked widespread reform. Law enforcement agencies implemented mandatory de-escalation training programs, and policies were revised to prioritize accountability and transparency. Advocacy groups credited Maya's courage for igniting these changes, hailing her as a symbol of resilience and hope. At home, life slowly began to resemble normalcy again. Leela continued to recover, her progress slow but steady. Physical therapy sessions became opportunities for celebration, with every small milestone bringing joy to their household. On one sunny afternoon, as Maya pushed Leela on the swings at the park, the same park where their peaceful evening had once been shattered, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in months. "You're getting stronger every day, sweetheart," Maya said, smiling as Leela laughed, her curls bouncing in the breeze. "I'll be running again soon, Mommy," Leela replied confidently. "Just you wait," Maya chuckled, brushing away a tear. "I believe you, baby. I believe in you." Though scars remained both visible and invisible, Maya knew they would heal with time. The journey had taught her that while pain could break you, it could also forge unshakable strength. She had fought for justice not out of vengeance, but out of love for her daughter, for her community, and for a better tomorrow. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light across the playground, Maya knelt beside Leela and kissed her forehead. "No matter what happens," she whispered, "we'll always keep moving forward together." And in that moment, surrounded by laughter and the promise of renewal, Maya allowed herself to dream of brighter days ahead. The shadows of the past still lingered, but they no longer defined her. Instead, they served as a reminder of how far she and countless others had come in the pursuit of justice, healing, and hope.